about a few weeks since the last video. I have started so many new cross-stitch projects this year, so I thought it was time to give an update. And there's a few other things to talk about as well. I think this will be a longer video than usual. So if you like, you can grab a cup of tea, coffee, or you'll probably need a samovar. So a samovar is a very large canister, a metal canister that holds about 20 or 30 liters of tea, and it keeps it warm, so you just gonna pour yourself a cup every now and then. So you will probably need one of those for this video. I will also be looking at this notebook frequently since I've written down all the stuff to show you so I don't forget. Yeah, so to start with, I'll talk about some Flosstubers I've been watching, new ones and old ones. I will go through my new starts. There's about seven new starts. I'll talk about my WIPS, the progress I've made, as well as plans for the future. So I will just mention a few new Flosstubers I've been watching. One of them is Chinook Crafter. So she's a relatively new Flosstuber. She's got about 2 videos and she's got some really pretty designs that she's working on. And the thing that impressed me a lot was that she actually had her newborn baby like in a carrier while she was doing her video. So yes, I know how hard it is having a newborn, especially those first few weeks, so massive respect for doing that. The other new Flosstuber, his name is Johnny Saxon. I'll put the links to these below. He's also relatively new. He's got 2 videos, but he has already got quite a large following. He's Australian. He's into kind of the more mystical, wizard-themed projects, as well as other things, but he has a really nice kind of conversational style. It sort of feels like he's talking to a friend. Yeah, so check out those. The other Flosstubers I've been watching, I regularly watch Lindy Stitches, Yasmin's Made with Love, Marumi Crafts, and Stitches with Charlie Feathers. So they're kind of my go-to channels. All right, now on to the new starts. So I've attempted to organize everything in a series of baskets as well as on the floor. That tends to be where most of my projects go, just on the floor. And this is because the cupboards in my room are literally just filled with craft projects, knitting, crochet, diamond dots, various hobbies I've had throughout the years. So now we've got the floor projects. I do want to organize my craft stuff a bit better, but that's a problem for another day or another year. All right, I've got to keep on track, otherwise this video will be like 2 hours long. Yes, so firstly I wanted to talk about a new stitch along. All right, so this is actually a stitch along that Algemme and I have started. So Algemme is a cross stitcher who's got an Instagram page. I'll put her link below. But basically we kind of had this idea of cross stitching outdoors. So you may already be familiar with yarn bombing, and that's when people will knit things and randomly place them on objects in public. So I've seen them on trees. Sometimes people wrap knitted pieces of wool around trees, or I've seen some really cool ones on benches. People have yarn bombed benches or cross-stitched benches. Not really sure why people do this. I don't think there's a deeper meaning behind it, or if there is, please enlighten me. But I think it's a really cool way to just add something to public spaces that would otherwise be pretty dull. So anyway, I was thinking about, could cross stitch be a new medium for this stitch bombing potential. I don't know what you would call it. Stitch bombing? Probably. Cross stitch bombing, floss bombing. Floss bombing is probably the right term. Yeah, so we've started this outdoor cross stitch movement. I'll put the hashtag below if you do want to join. So algemme, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but she has already made a piece. So hers is this cute kind of Mario design that says home sweet home. And she's put that sort of as a welcome sign to her front door. So I think that's a good place to start. Probably putting it in a public place is a bit more advanced. Not advanced, but more brave. You're more likely to lose it, but I'd say start with close to your home. So this is the piece I'm going to do for the stitch along. So I've shown this before, but it's Not Forgotten Farms pattern, which is called Pardon the Weeds. And I've made quite a bit of progress on this. Nope. Okay. So it says on it, pardon the weeds, I'm feeding the bees. And I'm planning to display this at my front door, partly to explain why there are so many weeds in my yard. I took a few photos from my front yard yesterday morning. I'll try and incorporate them in this video over here if I can, just to show you what's blooming at the moment. So this is a storm lily. I actually planted these quite some time ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and they're really low maintenance. You just put the bulbs in and you forget about them. And they're called storm lilies because every time it rains, they will come up with this beautiful flower. I've also got this, it's actually called a Persian rose. It's more of a wild type rose. It's quite different to the heavily hybridized roses you see today. It's got less petals. That actually makes it better for pollinators because they can get to the pollen quicker. And this is almost a weed in my front yard. It's very hardy. You might even see it growing in the wild in coastal places. But yeah, if you let it grow unchecked, it becomes this huge plant. It has a lot of flowers. You don't really need to prune it as much as traditional roses, but it does get large and it's spiky. But I managed to capture these pictures of some native bees pollinating it. So in Australia, we have a lot of different native bees. There's only one type that makes a hive. The others are mostly solitary bees, but this particular type, Teratogonula I'm not saying that right. I'm about to say carbonara. Yes, that's a pasta. But this kind of bee, they kind of look more like winged ants, but they're a bee. They have this complex hive system which is in a spiral rather than the hexagon. And I've got my own hive. I bought a hive of the native bees maybe 4 years ago. They're really low maintenance hive. You can just kind of leave it in a corner and forget about it. It's nothing like the European bees. Downside is it produces a lot less honey. So whereas you'd get 40 litres of honey in a European hive, you'd only get 1 litre a year if you're lucky in a native hive. But the honey is a lot more special. So it's said to have a lot of antimicrobial properties similar to Manuka honey, and it's supposed to taste different. It's got more of a acidic kind of citric quality. I haven't harvested any honey from my hive yet. I'm a bit scared, so I don't want to disrupt the bees. They don't sting, but yeah, I don't know. I just feel like cracking open their hive is some sort of violation. I'll probably do it one day. Yeah, so all that kind of explains why I've chosen this. I have made a fatal error in this piece, and that is I decided to backstitch all the lettering because I didn't think it was very clear, though it's not too bad. But once I started, I couldn't stop because that would take more work than continuing. But I'd say it's taken me longer to backstitch these letters than it has to do the entire rest of the piece. But now that I've started, it's too late to go back. I've personalized the cat in the pattern, so I've made the cat look a bit like my cat, Salty, who's a calico tortoise shell. Yeah, so when I finish this, I'm planning to put it in a frame and have it near my front door. So if you want to partake in this stitch along, the only requirement is that you have to display your work outdoors somewhere. This can be in public if you're brave, or it can be on your own property, like as a welcome sign. Yeah, so hope you can join. I will consult my notebook for the next agenda item, which is the natural world stitch along. So this is one of the stitch alongs I've joined this year. Yes. I actually foolishly ended up doing this twice. So this is a stitch along by Pixie Stitch. I think it's the first stitch along she's done, and she's released I think 2 parts of it so far. Let's see. Well, I don't have a picture of the thing she's released, the image, but I'll just show you what I've done. So this is what I started with, which I've now decided I had to redo. I had this idea that I'd use up all my excess floss, and I had this really nice Caron Water Lilies silk floss, so I thought this would be a good place to use it. But like, the floss looks really pretty in the skein, but on the linen it just hurt my eyes. I think it was the clashing colors, and then I tried to use variegated floss for the motifs, and it just looked all a bit uncoordinated. I tried to remedy this by adding a darker color, and then I just thought, no, I'll just start again. And I didn't really mind starting again because it was pretty fun to stitch this, just the process of stitching it. And I also didn't really want to continue using this fabric. This is a linen, and I've got this newfound love for Aida now, so I wanted to put this on Aida. Yeah, I never used to be big on Aida. I think because when I started stitching, I kind of jumped straight into linen. I think I was a bit of an Aida snob, where I thought, oh, that's for beginner cross stitch. But I've done a few pieces on it, and it's actually really good. Like, you can stitch a lot quicker, you can see where you're going at night time, because I do most of my stitching at night. So I've been really reluctant to do any of my new starts on linen, and it doesn't look that different. Like, from a distance you can't really appreciate the detail in linen anyway. So this is my second attempt at the stitch along, and I decided to use a darker colour for the border. So I learnt my lesson. You probably shouldn't use light colours for borders because it kind of defeats the purpose of having a border. And I'm using more subtle variegation for the motifs. This one is the 3777 DMC, or 3750, I don't know. It's that dark navy, the classic DMC dark navy. So I'm going to use a mix of non-variegated and very lightly variegated. I'll show you the threads. Yeah, so my new palette is going to be something like this. This is Gentle Arts threads, so they all have subtle and a variegation, and I think that works better with this piece. It's the images are more likely to stand out. I'm a bit sad I can't use my silk floss, but I just don't think it works on this piece. I'll have to work out what other things I can use it for. Okay, so next, this is another new start. kind of went crazy with starting new projects. Given it's the new year, I thought I'll get these all done this year, maybe. This is a Nora Corbett, and it's a series called Letters by Nora, and it's got obviously all the letters of the alphabet. So I've picked L, so my daughter's name starts with L, and I've tried to stitch things for her before, cross stitch, and her response has always been meh. So I'm persistent though, and I'm going to keep stitching things for her until she likes one. And she's into fairies at the moment, so I thought this is maybe a good bet. I really like, I got this from 123 Stitch, and I bought all the things I needed for it at once, so it all came in the mail at once. And I just really like the Gentle Arts threads again, and the color scheme. They're all very subtly variegated. There is some beading on this design too. Not too much though. They've got some Krynic thread. I think it's just enough beading to not be frustrated with the whole thing. It's got these tiny little butterflies. Wow. I don't know if you can see that, but it's like they're really pretty. I haven't even looked at those up close, but yeah. And I will show you what I'm up to. So I started on the fairy, and yeah. See, I used Ada for this, and this is probably one piece I shouldn't have used Ada on, because I didn't realize there's a lot of fractional stitches. I think that's what they're called, like quarter stitches, and I had to forcibly kind of poke holes where there are no holes in the Ada to make them work. Doesn't look that bad, and I think I did mess up the counting. The arm is like one space bigger than it should be, but I'm not going to unpick it. I'll just keep going. And I got this needle minder from one of my friends. It says, "I don't need therapy, I just need more floss." I fully agree with that sentiment. Okay, now the next one is, so this is a surprise project I started. I don't know why I called it surprise. Just uncommon, I guess. It just came up on my Instagram feed, but all the explanation of what it was in Ukrainian. So yeah, someone had done this piece and posted that finished work, and I just fell in love with it. Like, how cute is that fox? It's got a quilted blanket, and there's stars and a heart. It combines quilting, cross stitch, and foxes. Like, what's not to love? Yeah, so that picture came up. I couldn't read what it said under it, obviously, but I used the translate function, and I went to the designer's page and worked out, okay, this person has a shop. I should tell you her name. I think it's Kosovo Stitch. I'll put the link below, but she did have a shop, so I went to the website, and of course couldn't read anything on it. So I just messaged her, and yeah, she was really nice. She said it's a bit hard working out the payment from Australian dollars to Ukraine, but she said if I donated to a Ukrainian charity, she would give me the pattern. So I did that. Yeah, she sent me the pattern. So if you're interested in starting this, I guess just message the designer. I'll put her name below. So I've only made a very rudimentary start on this. This is part of the quilted blanket, obviously. And I was in my Ada buying spree, and I got this sparkly Ada, which I thought was appropriate for this piece because it kind of looks like rain. The only kind of complicated thing about this one is there's a lot of a lot of colours, so it's not as simple as some of the other ones I'm stitching. I'm just trying out a few different floss management systems, but I find when there is a piece with lots of colours, these thread organisers work really well. So what I do normally is cut like 2 lengths of each colour, put them here, and you just write what the symbol is there. It comes with a thread cutter. I don't really use it though because it's not as precise as scissors. And then I normally would put the stock solution, that's not the right phrase, the larger floss in on a floss bobbin and have them in a box, and then when this runs out I just refill it with a couple threads from the bigger stock. So I find that works well with these pieces that have a lot of colour changes. Okay. So next, is that, no, this one. This is also another stitch along. So this is from Flossie Fox Shop. I've always really admired her designs. Her name's Andrea Betts. So she often has a lot of pixel art style designs, cute animals. I think she's even got some Stardew Valley inspired designs, but I never bought any of her work until now. I just I like stitch alongs, and I saw some of the stitch along she had made, and yeah, I just had to get it. So she's released 2 parts of it, but I haven't even finished the first part yet. But I really like this style of kind of computer game. I should have ironed these. I never iron anything. Yeah, and yeah, I really like the colours. They're very bright. I am stitching this on linen, despite my whole speech about how I no longer like linen. But if I do use linen, I find the easiest one to work with is casual linen, 28 count. It's quite close to Ada in ease of use, and you can tell it's linen as well. So yeah, I'm also trying to use that floss system I told you about earlier, where I put the main floss bobbins here, and then I just use the thread organizer as I'm stitching. Yeah, so you can see each of these new starts, I haven't made much progress on them, I guess because my efforts were like diluted across all the starts. But I don't really mind that. I find I'll just stitch what I feel like, and then when I'm bored of it, I'll move on to the next thing. Yeah, so that's been working okay. All right, I've still got more new starts. Let me consult my book. This one I may have shown you last WIP parade, but I may not have, so I'll just show you again. So this is an owl forest embroidery piece. It's a chicken sampler. I haven't seen many people stitching this yet, or maybe I'm not using the right hashtag. Oh, it's actually called chicken yard. I didn't even know that. So this was one of the PDF designs they released last year. So I've been working on this using cottage garden threads because you can't purchase the owl forest threads from Russia anymore. Yeah, so I've done the central motif, and I've kind of started on a few of the other motifs. So it's a rooster, obviously. Yeah, and this one's really fun to stitch. I'll show you the threads I'm using. Yeah, so I'm using a mixture of the variegated cottage garden threads. What I did was I looked up the owl forest threads it called for, and then tried to cross match them with these from the Cottage Gardens website. They're not completely accurate, but I think they're working okay so far. Okay, another new start. You may not believe this, but this is actually the first dimensions kit I've ever bought. Yeah. Oh, I don't have the stock image. I'll have to show you here if I can figure it out. If not, I'm just pointing at nothing. But so this is a dimensions kit. Yeah, I tended sort of not to gravitate away from them because I'm not a huge fan of full coverage, but I was really drawn to lighthouse art recently. I don't know why. They just make me feel a bit peaceful. And this was a really nice kind of lighthouse inspired piece. And with dimensions kits, they come with all the thread you need, and the design itself is a bit more complicated than usual cross stitch. They've got a lot of fractional stitches, a lot of variations where you use one thread over two or two threads over one, and it's all a bit more complicated. So that's why I was less willing to do them. But I've really been, oh gosh, I should really iron my stuff. Anyway, been really enjoying this, and I've kind of appreciated why you needed to use fractional stitches. I'm not sure if you can tell, but it changes the texture of the piece. So the part, this is meant to be the cliff, the part with the grass is slightly raised, and that's using 2 over 2, and then the area below it, which is the sand or the cliff face, has just been a half stitch. So the effect is the grass is thicker, kind of stands out more to you than the sand. And I hadn't really stitched anything before with texture in it like that. Yeah, so I kind of got dimensions kits. Like I understood why you needed all that different type of stitching. Whereas before I just kind of would do like flat cross stitch. And with these kits, they come with just this mess of thread. It's not the worst floss management that I've seen. You can just pull like one thread at a time out of these. They just tend to get tangled, so it's a bit more work to deal with that. So I think that is all the new starts. Now I will go through the WIPS. So I've been focusing more on new starts, so there's been less progress on WIPS, but I'll show you anyway. This is the long dog sampler I'm working on. Ooh, I want to show you the pattern. This is Sansuki, I don't know how you pronounce it, but that's the finished piece. This is my progress so far. Oh, I've got some thread on. So as you can probably tell, I don't really like monochromatic stitching. So I've been trying to add like little bits of color in this. Yeah, I really like this part with the ducks, and there's heaps more to go. I've almost finished page 1, but I'll slowly keep chipping away at this year. Okay, what is this? Ah, yeah. So this is by Mojo Stitches, and it's called In the Library, and it uses cottage garden threads. They released some floss that was also called In the Library in terms of the range, and this is the floss card. I got this from Mojo Stitches Etsy shop. She's an Australian stitcher, but all the names of the floss are related to library or books, which is cute. So this one's called Cloth Bound Chamomile Tea, Mercator, I can't remember what that even means. Anonymous. Austin is this one. Page Turner. And then I think my favorite here is Sleepy Cat. It's the ginger one. Yeah, so I really like the names of the floss. They're a lot more interesting than DMC floss names. Like DMC probably has 20 variations of brown, like beige brown, drab brown, dark brown. Like, could they have been a bit more creative with the names maybe? So this is what I've done so far, trying to stretch out the wrinkles anyway. I really like the border on this. So there's a moth, and this is ivy, but I haven't filled in all the gaps obviously. Yeah, I've finished one shelf. So the pattern called for 1/1 or 1/2, but I wanted more saturation on the color, so I've done 2/2. And this is casual linen 28 count. So this is by the Blue Flower. I only got this in black and white, but it's called I count not my day complete till needle, thread and fabric meet. I haven't made too much progress on this, and that's mainly because I chose 40 count linen to stitch this on. I don't know why. I thought I'd try it out. Terrible idea. I could only stitch this in the sun, and I really only have time to stitch at night, so it's very rare that I'll get an opportunity to stitch in the sun. Having said that, I think it's a really beautiful piece. Since last time I showed you, I've just added these leaves, but I did mess up the pattern a bit. This area isn't meant to be here. It's meant to have moved up, but I thought I'd fill in the area with a cat, but I chose terrible colors for the cat, and it just looks like a giant rat. But not to worry, I will keep kind of chipping away at this. Oh, this has to be my favorite needle minder. It's a moth, and it's got a little dangly moon. It's got moon phases. Okay, so this is one I haven't really worked on for a while. It's the Autumn Alphabet by Willow Hill Samplings. I'll show you this first. I really like this floss ring. I think this was also from Mojo Stitches. She has some really nice floss rings in her store. Yeah, so I haven't made much progress on this. This fabric is, I can't remember the name of the person, but it's called, I remember the colorway is called Decrepit or something like that. Or is it Swamp? It was some sort of gross name, and I thought it fitted the green kind of slime color well. Yeah, so I've almost finished the main part of it. I don't know, I haven't been that drawn to this one lately. I guess because it's not autumn. Maybe that's why. So this one, this is a piece that was made by Modern Folk Embroidery for Pride Month last year. It was the Pride stitch along, but I am very slow. Well, mostly because I have so many projects, but I haven't finished this even though it was from last year, so I'm going to continue stitching it this year. I really like the vibrant colors in this. I've done one corner, as you can see, and the rest of the corners kind of repeat that motif. I stitched this on Lugana. Yeah, I'm happy with the colors and the linen choice, and I'm hoping to make this into a bag, so maybe sew this onto an existing bag. What is this? Okay, this should have been in the new start pile, but anyway, this is the new stitch along by Barbara Anna. It's called Star Woman. Let's show you this. That doesn't tell you much, but it's supposed to be David Bowie themed. So I'm assuming the Dreaming Girl will have maybe a Ziggy Stardust look. Yeah, I've only made a very small start on it. I think that's part of the jacket the girl's wearing. And she's in a lantern. I really like Barbara Anna's lantern motifs, so that's the main reason I went for this. Put that here. So if you watched one of my previous videos, you'll see I have a whole pile of shepherd's bush kits that I impulsively bought, and I've only stitched one of them. And they're all quite similar, like in their style, so I haven't been that inspired to go and stitch more. But anyway, I have been working on this one for a while. This is a needle book, and it says Cherish Life. Yay. It's been pretty slow progress, but this is what I've got so far. I've done the sheep. I don't know, is that a beehive? This whole time I thought it was a tree, but it makes sense if it's a beehive. I really like these kits because they come with usually really lovely floss. They use a lot of, well, they use a combination of silk floss and DMC or cotton floss. So these are the silks. This one's a silk too, and again this floss card came with it too. Yeah, and this particular kit also comes with so that's what the book's meant to look like. It comes with some fabric to finish and stitch the kit, stitch the needle book, and it's got these embellishments. Yeah, so their kits are very cute. I have like 5 of them I bought one day. I don't know if I'll ever finish them all. I might give some away in a giveaway one day. Yeah, so I want to go on a rant about this particular designer. Well, not the designer, just the way the thing's packaged. So Bella Filipina, I know a lot of people love Bella Filipina. I do love her design, so don't come for me, but just the way it's printed makes it so hard to read. I'm not going to show you the pattern, obviously, but yeah, it's too small, and it needs to be maybe like 10 times bigger or 8 times bigger than it actually is to be workable. And this isn't just a criticism of Bella Filipina. A lot of designers do this. Chatelaine in particular. If you buy their paper patterns, they're unusable. Yeah, so I just wish that they were upside down. That the pattern was in a more of a user-friendly format, i.e. bigger text size. I know some people, oh, this is falling out. Some people scan in the pattern and then blow up the pattern and print it, but that's like way too much effort, and not everyone has a printer. I'm just looking at my printer now angrily because it gives me a headache every time I use it. Yeah, so I just wish designers, not just calling out Bella Filipina, I wish they would be more user-friendly in their patterns. An example of a company that does it right is Al Forest. So they have like a good sized, it's like on an A2 or A3 paper, print out of the whole pattern, and then on top of that they give you little bits that you cut out of the motifs just blown up, so you can have the little motif as you stitch. That's my rant of the day. Actually no, I have more rants coming. Yeah, so I've started this. I don't even know if I'm holding it yeah, this is the right way. So that's her hair, and that's part of her mermaid tail. I haven't really picked this one up very much, mostly because of the issue with the pattern size. So I do have to scan it in at work and reprint it out again before I do that. Oh. There are a few more WIPs to show you, so I will just grab those and be back. So the next one is one of my own designs. This is one of the charity patterns I made to raise money for Iran, and this one's called Women, Life, Freedom. So that's what this says in Farsi, Zan Zendagi Azadi. And I'm almost finished. Sorry, my phone keeps telling me I'm out of storage. Yeah, so the pomegranate is symbolic of fertility, new life. And in this, I've tried to capture different seasons and the life of the pomegranate tree through the seasons. So this is winter. This is spring at the bottom, where it's starting to get its leaves. Summer is when it's flowering, and then that's the mature flower that eventually turns into the fruit. So you can get these patterns that I've made for free on Gumroad. They'll be free until March 1st. From then on, you will need to make a donation to an Iranian charity before you get them. I might also just talk a bit about Iran. If you're not interested or you don't have the mental space to sort of hear about politics, then you can feel free to skip through. I'll put the timestamps below, and no judgment. I know last year I didn't have the sort of mental space to think about activism or think about ways I could help. But this year it's been a bit different. I've felt more motivated to do things in that realm. And I think that's a big part of having collectivist action. It's not about having one person kind of do everything they can and burn out. It's more having a group of people that can pass the baton on and help in different ways. So if you are following what's happening, so in a nutshell, the people want a revolution. They want to get rid of the dictatorship that's currently destroying the country. There have been protests which started last year. So there are still quite large protests going on. They're just not covered very much in the media for a number of reasons. There's no foreign media allowed in Iran, so there is no real way to cover them other than people uploading videos. The Iranian government has shut down the internet several times, making it on purpose, really making it harder for people to upload the videos. Sort of the changing of a dictatorship to a democracy is a very long process. It's not something that can just happen with a few months of protests. Usually the governments that are put in place after that are quite unstable. So to have a good sustainable change, it needs time. So a lot more I could say about that, but I realize it's not something everyone is interested in, and that's okay. But I would feel not happy in myself if I didn't use my voice to talk about this. And I know my platform, these words are very wanky, but my platform is quite small. Like, I've got you who watch my video, and thank you for that. You make this, well, you're the reason I'm here talking to seemingly no one in my room. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is I would not feel happy with myself if I didn't at least use my tiny platform to talk about this issue that I'm passionate about. So yeah, thank you for listening to that little section if you did. Back to the cross stitch. So this is one of my oldest WIPs. I started this about 2 years ago. This is when I thought that all cross stitch was just full coverage. I didn't really have an idea about all the independent designers. So I got this from a website that kind of reproduces art into massive cross stitch pieces, full coverage pieces. So this is based on a Japanese artist. He did the Great Wave painting. This is called Amida Falls. It's the artist's name is Hokusai. So I don't even know if this website licenses their products. I'm probably not. It's a bit dodgy, but a lot of the artists they use are from like centuries ago, so I don't know if they need licensing. Not sure. Anyway, so I have almost finished this. As you can see, I just have this one corner left. Yeah, and I'm just having that inertia at the end of a project where I kind of, the closer I get to finishing it, it's like the slower I get. I don't know if anyone else experiences that. Yeah, but I will finish this one this year. That'll be the first full coverage piece that I finished actually ever. So this was a piece where this floss management system has really come in handy. So I just put in a few strands of floss for each of the colors, and then I just have this next to me when I'm stitching. So this next piece is a witchy piece. So I've got it in the witch bag, and it's the Wheel of the Year sampler by the Wishing Thorn. This is probably one of my favorite cross stitch pieces ever. I just have a black and white kind of picture of it, but I'll just show you mine because I've finished most of it. So it's in a sampler style, and it's got a lot of really cool motifs that represent pagan seasons. Yeah, so that's what I've done. I've almost finished. I've just got to do the top part, but I'll just show you. So that's no, I think that's Yule, but I may not have written Yule yet. I hope I didn't make a mistake. Imbolc, spider webs, Ostera, what's that one? Beltane, Lammas. I should probably read up more on this before I say these season names without knowing what they mean. But yeah, I really like this bee section. Mushroom season, I'm guessing that's autumn. The Samhain, maybe that's winter with the skulls, possibly. Yeah, so I've still got to do the top section, which will include some embellishments. So there's moons. I don't know if I have them here. I bought a few extra embellishments that I wanted to sew on. Hoping to finish this piece this year. Yeah, so these are the embellishments I bought. I couldn't find the ones the pattern had called for, so I got sort of approximate ones, acorns and moons, I thought would fit the theme. Okay, so this is one, so I started this last year but haven't made much progress on it. It's called Cat Collage. So it's an artwork by Laurel Birch. She does a lot of this kind of style of cats, mostly cats. She also has some of dogs and fish. But this is a licensed cross-stitch reproduction of her work. So I've complained about this kit before. The Aida they've given is like really unpleasant to work with. It's super stiff. I even put this in the washing machine and the dryer, and it was still very just scratchy and stiff. I think this is why I hated working with Aida. I've got so much nicer Aida now, so I kind of thought about, do I restart this? But the cats just took so long to stitch these big areas. I thought I'll just persevere. And it has softened a bit, I think just with the oils on my skin maybe, so it's not so bad to stitch on. Again, this pattern suffers from the problem of being printed extremely small, so I don't really pick this up that often because the pattern's just so frustrating to use. Maybe this is like an old person problem, like my eyes. I got my eyes checked though, and they were fine, so I'm going to blame the patterns. Patterns should be bigger. What else have I got? I think I've only got one more to show you. So this is from Blackbird Designs. This is the first Blackbird design that I have stitched. It's called What Remains Is Love. And made some progress on this. I've done kind of the bottom half, and started on the house. Yeah, it's nice to stitch on this every now and then. It's got a lot of birds, a peacock. It's got some specialty stitches, but they're not too hard to do. Okay, I think that's everything. I was also going to talk to you a bit about plants. So, is there time for that? Yes. So normally at the end of my videos I'll have a little houseplant section, and today I wanted to show you this plant. So this is one of my favorites. It's called Hoya Latifolia. It's also known as the dinner plate Hoya. So it's called that because, let me see, look at this monster of a leaf. It's like a dinner plate almost, maybe more like a tea saucer. Yeah, oh gosh, this plant, see, the thing I like about these plants is you can completely neglect them, not water them, and this one has some weird fungus situation going on. It's a bit Last of Us-esque. Yeah, you can have fungus growing on it and it still looks pretty good and is forgiving. Yeah, so I've had this one for a few years. The thing with Hoyas are they either will die in the first few months or you will have them forever. There's just no in between. So my solution to this is to have a trial and error approach where I buy heaps of them, like heaps of little cuttings, and the ones that survive, good. The ones that die, I throw them out. So now I'm left with the really hardier ones. There's no real rhyme or reason to it. It just seems to be random, and also what your conditions are in your house. So this one I bought when it was quite small and it's grown. Yeah, so Hoyas are a type of jungle succulent. So by that I mean they're not like desert succulents, obviously. They grow usually in rainforests from Borneo. That's where most Hoyas are found. There's also some in Papua New Guinea and Australia. So unlike a normal succulent, they need more water than those. And when I say more water, I don't mean like an aroid would. You can get away with watering this once a week, but you can also get away with watering it once every few months. So if you do neglect them, they just kind of stay put. They won't grow extra leaves, they won't die, they'll just be in this stasis, and they're forgiving. So if you do pick up the attention again, they'll grow more leaves. They also don't need as much light as a typical succulent. I've got these in this window, which is probably too much light for them. Some of them have got burnt leaves, but you can put them in even medium light. The best thing about them is the flowers. So this one's not flowering, but it has last year. I'll put a picture of the flowers here. Flowers are the best thing about Hoyas. When I first saw a Hoya flower, like, I didn't think it was real. I thought it was candy. So they look really amazing. The flowers also smell really good. they kind of have a gardenia smell, though each one has a different fragrance, and the fragrance occurs, I don't know if that's the right word, manifests itself at night. So often, well, I've got a Hoya, so I'm hanging over the kitchen sink, and sometimes when I'm doing the dishes I'll suddenly smell gardenia, and I'll look up and it's the Hoya flowering. It's like a nice little dopamine hit moment of the evening. Yeah, and once Hoyas start flowering, they will reliably flower for you every year. So they flower off this part. This one is looking quite gross and fungus covered because I haven't been looking after it. So they grow off this, which is called a peduncle. So when you have a Hoya, like, never prune it at the peduncle because then it just won't flower. But the flowers will come off this every year. And the reason why this is so diseased is because the flowers are very rich in sap. You think you can actually eat the sap? Not sap, sorry, nectar. I have like licked the nectar and it's like honey. I haven't had much of it, so don't quote me on that and go eat a Hoya, because the sap is toxic, the white sap. Don't eat the sap. Anyway, what am I saying? I'm saying the nectar that comes out of the flowers is very sweet, and it makes the plant prone to these like fungus problems. So that's why that's all there. Mealybugs, it attracts mealybugs, but they're very resilient plants. It's not going to die from that. Yeah, so this one has 2 peduncles, so I get flowers from both those every year. It takes a while for them to flower. They kind of have to reach this size before they will flower, and that can take 2 to 3 years. So if you just hang in there with them for 2 or 3 years, you get those flowers. I think that's it for today. Thanks everyone for watching. Yeah, I hope you can put a comment below. I do like chatting to this community. I've also got an Instagram. I post there more regularly. Check out my Gumroad to see the charity patterns I've designed, and I'll see you next time.